Hello, all. We are here for a Monday. Will be plenty of news in the hockey world, and we'll discuss that with Russ Cohen and Peter Tessier, who will be joining us in a minute. But Russ, I wanted to touch on the sporting world for the weekend. I was let's just say I got up early to unfortunately watch the Buffalo Bills take it really hard from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are, to me, one of the worst teams in the NFL, but apparently the Bills are up there as well because Jacksonville handled them pretty easily.
Now,
But
did you
then,
see it on Yahoo or did you see it on TV?
in Buffalo and in Jacksonville, apparently they were broadcast on broadcast television, but
Okay.
every other market it was on Yahoo.
Every other market suffered on Yahoo, I heard.
Yeah, and the play-by-play wasn't the greatest, and the camera work wasn't the greatest. I mean, I don't know how I don't know if they rented the NFL Network coverage or whatever. It was just bad, but the game was worse. So there you go. But the 1 o'clock games and the 4 o'clock games, the one that attracted most attention to me was the Jets in New England. And I have to say, and this isn't any kind of great revelation, but Tom Brady is a cold-blooded assassin. He just, I mean, very rarely does this guy make mistakes. And in the fourth quarter of that game, I think the Jets were leading when it ended the fourth quarter, and
16.
the game wasn't in doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it was in doubt for a moment until Brandon Marshall dropped the ball wide open in the end zone. After that, it was never in doubt because then you knew there was no chance. Even then, they probably would have lost, but they probably would have lost in like overtime. Like Brady was probably not going to be denied. But here's the thing that I think Jet fans could have the takeaway. They were able to neutralize Brady for a while in that game. Their defense was very good. Some people might say, well, they gave up 30 points. It's Tom Brady, okay?
Yeah.
And Brady makes all these guys that he has look better. Like Gronkowski's a star. Is Edelman a star? No. The other receivers they have, Amendola, is he a star? No. La Drop, as I called him, he had 7 chances, and LaFell just kept dropping them. I just say that was a step forward for the Jets, even in a loss. I have to tell you that. I wasn't expecting a win, but they really did hang with them, and that gives me hope that they might be able to beat them at home. I didn't expect to beat them at Gillette Stadium. I didn't.
Yeah. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
We'll get started here, but there's a lot of news that came out of the weekend. Some injury news, some disputed video review situations that I will start first off the bat. But let's do the intro here. Ross, you go first, then Peter. Then okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, October 26th, 2015.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Peter Tessier from HockeyBuzz covering the Jets.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Eklund will be back tomorrow, hopefully. Well, guys, very interesting weekend in the NHL. Some winning streaks continued. Some losing streaks finally ended. But the disputed goals, there were 2 of them. The Jared Stoll review, the goal that was waved off for goaltender interference, and the Connor McDavid goal late in regulation against LA yesterday. I'm puzzled because, in general, the video review I thought has been pretty effective and has narrowed down a lot of the errors that have happened. But in both of these situations, Russ, you first, I thought that Stoll didn't interfere with Steve Mason, and the goal should have been counted. And the McDavid situation with the puck underneath Quick's glove, that is, in terms of determining whether a puck goes over the goal line, the technology is there. We've talked about it at many webcasts before. I don't understand why the NHL doesn't go to it. What are your thoughts?
I imagine they've looked at it. I imagine they are still sort of like this holdover where we're trying to keep the game as close to the roots as possible. That's my guess. I don't know what the real argument could be. First with the Mason one. It's funny. Last year I went crazy about the goaltender interference, and not because of me did they change a rule, but because of a lot of people complaining about it. They changed the rule. Well, the problem with this non-goal that definitely was a goal was the fact that they called it incidental contact before the puck crossed the line, right? So here's what you have. You have Jarrett Stoll shooting. You have Mason outstretched. You have Jake Voracek pushing him into the net.
Yeah.
Okay. Puck's definitely going to go in. Mason was able to move his glove. It wasn't like the stick jammed it to the point where he couldn't make a save. But I still don't think he was going to make a save. He was fully outstretched. Like, he would have had to have been Stretch Armstrong to even make that save. And the takeaway is there's no penalty for interference. So if there's no penalty for goaltender interference, how could you possibly take a goal off the board? And I go back to the baseball analogy for a minute when Joe Torre decided to say, hey, by the way, when we reviewed that Ruben Tejada play, the neighborhood play is no longer in play when it's under video review. And I'm thinking, well, how is that possible? This is a rule in your rule book. And so what I've grown to understand is with leagues is they haven't caught up. The rule book is not caught up to the digital technology they have, and they haven't rewritten the rules. So I went around and I said to anybody, do you know of a rule for incidental contact for goalies? And they all said no. And this is where I asked TV people, I asked former players, I asked other writers, and so this has to be updated. You can't just take a goal off the board like that for something that was going to go in and probably not going to be saved anyhow, because, like, again, to me it's cut and dry. Penalty or no penalty.
Peter, I think that I'm getting a bad echo here. I don't know why. But that's gone now. I think that this play, I mean, Russ said that Voracek pushed Stoll into the goal. I've been of the opinion that if goaltenders are going to be injured, it's not going to be because of players like Stoll going to the net. It's going to be because players like Voracek are pushing opposing players into their own goaltender. What did you think of both that play and the McDavid play?
First off, I didn't see the Stoll goal, so I haven't had a chance to catch up on that. But Russ has hit it bang on the money here. The rule book isn't catching up to the intentions that they want to do with technology. It's a mess in a whole bunch of areas. This is just the latest mess because we're now employing technology to deal with it. I think the NHL has this intrinsic way of overcomplicating the most simplest things, and I think the puck off the skate rule is really your benchmark of how the NHL consistently makes something so simple so complicated. Right. And I'll go back to that for a second here. If you want to clean it up, don't allow any goals that goes off a skate. Just say too bad, so sad. Right. Put it off your head if you're going to allow that. But don't if it goes off a skate, benefit of the doubt, nothing happens. And you know what? And even though we didn't like the skate in the crease rule, it was black and white. There's no gray area in it. So go back to that. So in this case, if a player has contact with another player and he pushes that player into his own goalie, fine. Or sorry, if you push a player into the goalie, no chance. But if you push your own player into a goalie, if you push your own player in, or you push the opposition player into the goalie, you've neutralized your own goalie. That's your fault. Like, it's really not that hard. But if you push a player into the goalie, like, for instance, if you're the offensive player and you push the defenseman in, same thing. You can't use a battering ram to impede the goalie. It's just it's simple. But the NHL complicates it. They want to make sure that, well, we don't want to take away battles in front of the net. It's their same idea that says, well, we'll only do, major penalties on east-west hits, not north-south with headshots and stuff. Like, it's not that hard.
Russ, I don't know what distinct kicking motion is anymore. I mean, I see players who are breaking to the net and they're sliding, to a stop, and that's not a kicking motion, but
to me, yeah, I agree with you. To me now, if a player turns his skate when he hits the puck, that's enough. Forget the kicking motion. Yes. Nobody has the room to kick.
Right. Yeah, no, but I mean, I've seen players sliding to a stop in front of the goal, and it's clear that they're not kicking, but it's called no goal. And then I see players where the puck is coming out, and they angle their skate, and it goes off their skate, and and that's counted as a goal. I mean, it's the logic is completely gone. So I mean, but let me just touch on one thing with the McDavid one, because it happened, I think, with 4 seconds left to go in the third period. It would have been the tying goal for Edmonton. If you look at the puck, there was no conclusive video proof of the puck going over the red line. But as we know, with technology in the English Premier League in soccer, and that's been for years used in tennis, they have the technology is there. All they would have to do is put a coating or something on the outside edge of the puck that would tell when the puck was completely over the red line, and that would determine it. But because they don't, because that either that hasn't been perfected or whatever the reason, maybe they just don't want to go down that road to take that responsibility from the referees or from the video judge. But this is a gray area, because you can't see that puck going over the line. Just like if the goaltender is on top of the puck and gets pushed into the goal, you can't tell. But the puck is over the line, so you would think that they would want to find that out.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. I go to Peter for a sec, because I have a picture that's conclusive, and I'm going to put it up here.
I mean, Peter, I understand, like, I'm sure the want of the NHL is not to go completely the other direction and have Toronto reviewing everything. That would make the game a lot more tedious. You'd be waiting for them to make their call. That's been the complaint so far with the coach's challenge, in terms of how long it takes for Toronto to make a determination on a call. But here in this instance, you're talking about a goal. You're talking about the difference between a tie and a point in the standings and a loss. So I mean, I think they have to. It's incumbent upon the league to get it right, and that mechanism would help them get it right.
I don't know if you could show it on screen the way Ek does.
I can't.
That's okay. Take a look at it, and then I'll try and put my phone up so people could see it. Hold on.
I've seen that photo, Russ, and it's a valid thing. And I guess the NHL has an argument of the camera angle. Someone else tweeted out something today that was an animation that shows a puck in that position, and how when you change in the camera angle to coming over top of it versus the angle.
Yeah, this is the geometry talk. Do we really believe that? I don't believe it.
Well, what I don't believe is that it's a valid excuse when the technology exists. That's the problem. And that's the thing. Photo, they were willing to spend $30,000 a puck in 1993 for Fox Sports, and it went into the stands to get the pucks when they went out of play. RFID technology is cheap as borscht now. Just there's no excuse.
Yeah, and this picture that Russ is showing me, and I can retweet the link so people can look at it. But it shows basically the puck over the goal line with a little space of white in between the red of the goal line and the white. Yeah, Russ, just say something, because the camera will go to you once.
Okay, so there. I mean, you could see. I know it's not the greatest close up, but you could see where. I lost it on that one, but you could see where the puck is and.
Yeah.
Everything else, I got to hold it out a little bit.
It's. I mean, it looks like it's about maybe half an inch over the goal line, I don't know if Toronto had that view. Obviously, if they did,
but that's not camera trickery. That's not geometry. That's the puck.
Yeah. I don't understand why we don't put a camera in the bar, inside the bar, that just is there, and basically it looks straight down and captures an image field. And yes, they'll say, well, sometimes the goalie's there, sometimes it isn't. But why not add one more tool?
Right.
Why not put another tool in the tool belt to make sure you get it right? And one thing on this: if this wasn't Connor McDavid, would we be as up in arms?
Yeah, we would, or at least I think we would.
I don't know. I think because it's Edmonton media, and because it's Connor McDavid, there's a little more attention to this because, well, he's a phenom. I do buy it. Like the stuff on Twitter last night was getting a little out of hand. You know, people calling it, this could have been the defining moment for a generational player. Oh, please. It's a goal that was going to tie the game against the King.
So Peter, I think it's the same group of people who thought that the flashing of the Game 1 Kansas City New York Mets for the World Series was a conspiracy that Fox was going to tilt the game towards the Toronto Blue Jays or against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, no, but I even saw it's a conspiracy next year because the Mets open up in Kansas City, and I'm like, wait a minute. The Mets had to make 3 trades and get 5 or 6 players to complete that conspiracy. That's hard to do.
Right.
So, forget that. But here's the other thing that I think we may not have all realized until the other day. So, like with that Jared Stoll call, basically the refs on the ice only confer with Toronto, but the refs on the ice are actually responsible for making the call.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, the only way it gets overturned is if there's conclusive proof that Toronto says, yeah, it's the other way. I mean, if it's a little foggy, they go with the call that's originally made. Even if that call, I mean, to me, the call was wrong. If you looked at the video, Voracek pushes Stoll towards the goal, the puck goes off a Stoll, past Mason. It was incidental contact, but the contact was created by Voracek pushing Stoll.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that his own player is responsible for the goal. I mean, to me, Michael Grabner had an own goal for Toronto against Montreal on Saturday. The puck deflected off of his skate past Jonathan Bernier. He's as much responsible for that goal as Voracek is for the goal that went past Mason, but the NHL didn't see it that way.
Okay. All right.
I'm fair with that. Just to add something, and I watch a lot of rugby, and the Rugby World Cup's going on right now. You know what's really interesting is the refs in rugby wear a camera, and they get footage on that, but they have an official who's the alternate ref sitting in a booth who will then, at a whistle, literally call down to the guy in the field, and they want them to go up and review. And then the guy in the field will say, can you go review this? I saw something, the play moved on, I had to play advantage. So there's 2 things here. One, they should just add another official on the field as far as I'm concerned. But why not have a third official sitting making play reviews and saying, no, you missed that. You can do it both ways.
Well, essentially that's what they're using Toronto for, I guess.
But I don't want Toronto. I want the guy watching the game in the place who's there, and he's got the tools in there. That's what I want. I want a third referee, whether he's in the officials box, whether he's up in the press box looking.
I would like that better because a lot of people, and I was included, don't like the fact that, well, if the refs on the ice are making the call, then why are they conferring with Toronto? If Toronto, so I get what you're saying. I do.
And I think the reason why that won't happen is because it'll cost a lot more. You're talking about another official on the payroll, whereas everything is centralized in Toronto and everything can be determined there. That's probably why that won't happen. But I think there would be, because that official, that off the ice official, would be considered part of that crew. So there would be the checks and balances right there instead of going to this room in Toronto.
Here's the other thing: Toronto gets pulled in on something. This is the subjective nature of NHL officiating. Are they watching the way the game's been allowed to evolve? So has he seen it allow, we allowed this contact down at this end. This is fair over here because this is the way these 2 guys are calling it. There's a subjective nature to how the officials call a game, when they call penalties, how they do it. I'm not talking about even up things, but if you're watching the game and you're part of that team, he allowed this over here. I'm making a note of it. This has got to be allowed here. That's the game they're calling. Because games can be called so differently. Officials talk to players. They talk to coaches saying, I'm calling it tight. I'm putting an end to your crap because you guys did it last game. I'm putting an end to this. I'm going to let you play through it. I don't want any. That's what they do. I think a third official who's watching the game in its entirety and is part of that crew can err on the side of what's actually happening in the game, where Toronto is just like, yes, black, white, no, we can't tell. Back to you guys.
Right.
Well, let's move on here. The 3 stars of the week this week, Jonathan Quick was part of the discussion we were just talking about with McDavid. He was the 3rd star with 2 wins and a shutout. Andrei Markov of the Montreal Canadiens had a 5-point game in a 7-2 victory over the Buffalo Sabres on Friday, and Evgeny Kuznetsov of the Washington Capitals had 9 points this week for the Capitals, who are, they're rolling right now, Ross.
And a hat trick, right?
Yeah, 3 goals and 6 assists in a week, which is a pretty good week for the young Russian. Yep. Want to talk about the Canadiens. They're now a perfect 9-0 to start the season. They won
best in franchise history now.
Yeah, it is best in franchise history, and they have a chance to tie the record that is held by Buffalo and Toronto at 10 wins to start a season. I think they play Vancouver next. I think it's in Vancouver. I think they're going on a Western road trip. But they thoroughly dominated Buffalo on Friday, and then Toronto had 52 shots on Carey Price, and Carey Price had to make 49 saves in a 5-3 victory on Saturday. Ross, I'm still surprised. I'm still a little bit in shock here about the Canadiens. I mean, everything's going right. I mean, I watched every minute of the game on Saturday, and Pacioretty is scoring like crazy, and they're getting secondary offense, and they took advantage of a lot of Toronto mistakes. But I still don't think this team is as good as they're playing right now. But you can't take it away from them. They're playing fantastic hockey.
Well, I think the thing that keeps not being focused on by the media and some other people are, this is a team. Yeah. This really is a team. This has one superstar in Carey Price and one great player in PK Subban, and then it's a team. And I think, like I was saying last year, they came up a little short last year, but you could see that they were a good system team and things were working well for them. And, yeah, eventually they did come up a few short goals. So they did make some moves in the offseason, and they got Galchenyuk back in the middle, and he's a year older, and he looks good, and he was never going to be traded, like all that nonsense that comes out of Montreal sometimes, all the scandals out of their – I like to call them, like, they have, like, National Enquirers that cover hockey, And so they get those stories. And what you have here is a team with a lot of good elements. They have toughness. They've got good defense now. Their defense, they stole Petrie from Edmonton. That's something that's going to hurt them for years. That killed them. They fleeced them on that. And that was as an important part of anything they did. So you have all that. And then I just say, you know what? They're a solid team.
Peter, in watching that game, it looks like Therrien is putting all his eggs in one basket on one line. He's putting Gallagher together with Plekanec and Pacioretty. But when you see the other lines, I mean, their fourth line, he starts the game and starts some periods with the fourth line of Flynn, Torrey Mitchell, and Devontae Smith-Pelly. And they're getting significant minutes. It's not like they're being played 6 or 7. They're being played 10, 11, 12 minutes because they're effective, and they not only provide energy, but they were cycling the puck very well and generating scoring chances. So, I mean, to Russ's point, yeah, it seems like right now everything is on the same page. They're playing like a team. I'm still questionable about guys like Lars Eller and Alexander Semin, who we know the book on him. In 1 week he looks like he's a world beater, and the next week he's a ghost.
It's watching the reaction of Habs fans and the guys who cover the Habs. They're either wanting to burn Therrien at the stake, or they don't say anything about him. And they're 9-0. And I have yet to see someone, particularly anyone analytically minded, praise Therrien right now. I haven't seen it. Maybe I missed
it. He's getting all the props.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, Therrien got his extension. People were going bonkers. They rip him for deployment. They rip him for roster changes. They rip him for everything. And yet the team still does things, and the guy's awful, apparently. Maybe he's found the magic elixir with what he has, and maybe the players have realized the coach isn't going anywhere as well, and there's a little bit of an understanding here. And sometimes when you realize maybe he's the enemy, he's the hard ass, And there's a lot of players in the league who could use a coach like Michel Therrien, that's for sure. And that we've got to win, we've got to defeat him, and that brings us together, and that brings that team thing. And there's lots of theories about coaching that says if all the players hate the manager, whether it's baseball or the coach in whatever sport, they're usually going to bind together because they're all united in that front. Right. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of that with Montreal, and I think hate's a little bit too strong a word. But maybe they've found the right combination of and the ingredients to be successful a little bit above and beyond. And the fact that Carey Price is playing at like Hasek levels doesn't hurt either. And that'll pull out.
Russ, kinder and gentler. I pointed that out last year when he was sort of able to say he did some things wrong and was talking about himself that way in the media, things he would never have done 5 years ago. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah.
I just think he's proof of the old adage: show me a good goaltender, and I'll show you a good coach. I mean, you've got a world beater in Carey Price. I mean, he can cover up a lot of mistakes. He can cover up for the fact that a team does not have a sufficient offense.
Hey, Condon's undefeated too.
Yeah, but I'm saying like right now, like right now Price is I think 7-0. And his save percentage is like in the 960s, so like it's unconscious. But I mean, to that point, it's like the proof will be when this team gets to the postseason, and what Bergevin does at the deadline. If he adds a player or two to help this team get past the problems that they've had the last couple of years. I mean, 2 years ago it was the fact that Price got injured. Last year was that they couldn't keep up with Tampa. I think that if they're going to go further, they're going to need to add to that roster. But we'll talk about that.
Well, you know what? Winnipeg has two guys in Buff and Ladd who you could choose from, right?
Yeah. Speaking of hard asses, John Tortorella gets his first win with the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending their 8-game losing streak to start the season, defeating the Colorado Avalanche in Colorado. Russ. Coincidentally, the winning goal was Brandon Dubinsky. Now, there is some concern right now about Ryan Johansson. Apparently, not the Colorado game, but the game previous, he was benched, and everybody thought it was Tortorella maybe, yielding his power and will. But apparently, there's some sort of illness that's going on with the Ryan Johansson. So right now, there's some concern about that. But I mean, to me, I don't know whether Columbus can climb back into the race after losing 8 in a row. But I mean, it was good for them to get that first win under their belt.
Yeah, I saw that he got taken back on his own flight with one of the trainers, so that sort of raised my eyebrow too. Hopefully, he gets well soon. We don't know what the deal is. Torch is really running the place. On one of my shows, we had Allison Lucan on the other day, and she's out of Columbus, and she showed a picture this morning where Tortorella demanded nameplates on the players' practice jerseys because he probably doesn't know all of them, and they did it. Like so anything John Tortorella wants right now in Columbus, they're doing because he's already gotten a win. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's where they're at right now. So the fact that Dubinsky is going to play well for him does not shock me. I told you I felt that was all a bunch of malarkey, and people wanted to just make up stories like, hey, he can't play with him. And I'm no fan of John Tortorella, and you know that. But I also know that hockey players will play for anybody, and they could always turn their differences aside. And look, Dubinsky was a younger guy. He's an older guy now, and so there's a maturity on both. Tortorella had to mature too. Let's be real, right? So, and they both have done it, and so that's good. I mean, is it going to be the magic elixir? Not yet. I mean, there's still going to be bumps in the road. It still doesn't make their defense better. There still has to be, I'm sure they're going to be trying for a long time to make personnel changes, but that's going to take a while. So it's all a work in progress, but so far it's at least going in the right direction where if I was a fan, I would feel better about things.
The Anaheim Ducks continuing struggle here. They're now 1-5-1 after being shut out by the Minnesota Wild 3-0. I watched some of that game, and I'll tell you something. I never felt more sorry for anybody in my life than Bruce Boudreau after Minnesota scored a shorthanded goal, and immediately the camera pans to Boudreau, and he has a look on his face the only thing I can describe it is it's like the last time I went to a buffet and they told me that they were out of shrimp. You know, I mean, it was just a look of just a complete, bafflement. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, right now, you've got Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Ryan Kessler, who are not scoring. They're not playing really good defense at this point, and they've scored 6 goals in 7 games. Now, I heard over the weekend that Boudreau is not in trouble. I sort of find that hard to believe, because if they continue on this path for a little while longer, they're going to create themselves a deficit. It'll take them the entire year to dig out of. But I touched on a column over the weekend regarding the possibility of them rehiring Randy Carlyle, and I now think that that's a long shot at best, because Columbus had to give up a 2nd-round pick to get John Tortorella. I mean, I don't think Anaheim wants to give up a 2nd-round pick to sign to bring in Randy Carlyle, in spite of the fact that I think Carlyle is a good coach.
What about Ron Wilson?
Well, he's not under contract with the Leafs anymore.
There you go. You know what? Anaheim's curious. Is it a law of averages with them that shooting 2% is going to improve? Is it what Boudreau has done this year that's different than last? I think before
what did he do last year? He took a team that looked poised to go to the Cup, and they underperformed.
Yeah. So, that's a good point, Russ. But they got to the final, right? They got there. Who wants to go to the final and then play Chicago in that situation? No one, right?
But if you're good, you win. I mean, you have to do that. Everybody has to do that at some point. Every good team.
Look, it took Vancouver 3 shots. I mean, you have to do it. Okay, but at this point, you better have some understanding, if you're going to fire Boudreau, of what's wrong with the team.
Right.
You better know, because if you can him and nothing changes, or you get the new coach bump, you still have to know that the next guy can fix this, and you've identified the problem. And I think you've got to sort of keep Boudreau around a little bit and work with him, so you see what his problem is, and then you go and do it with your own brain trust outside of him and figure out if that's what you're seeing too. Well, you talk to your scouts. Firing the coach is a reaction move, and Columbus did it. I don't know if Torts is going to make much sense for them in the long run, but we'll find out. But the last time we saw coaches fired or dismissed this early in the season, I think, was with Savard in Philadelphia. Sorry?
Laviolette in Philadelphia with Craig Berube.
How long was that?
3 games. It was 3 games.
Okay, yeah, okay. I forgot about that one. But then there was Savard in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And then Quenneville came in, and the rest is history. But I think the biggest problem with half the NHL right now is they look to solutions for problems they haven't identified. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have knee-jerk coaching changes and such. I mean, would it have been any better for Vancouver to keep Torts or not? I mean, they're not that much better a team. They're just a different team. But that wasn't their problem. He was just one of many problems. I don't know if the same is going to be said for Boudreau. And who's available now? Wilson, Carlyle.
Well, I mean, and that's
who's out there. Who's going to make
that's where I think this.
Paul McLean. I mean, that's a complete change from Boudreau, and it's in-house. And
it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, I've heard McLean as an option. I've heard Trent Yawney, who's the other assistant coach in Anaheim, as an option. Yeah. But what the thing I question about that is the fact that they're part of this. They're part of that coaching staff. So I mean, how much of a change is it going to be from the mentality of and the aura of what's going on in Anaheim right now when you just kick Boudreau out and you bring in McLean? Now McLean is more of a talent. I
think it solves both things that Peter was talking about, though. It gets a guy out there who I think has had this team underperforming, yet it's not a major change to the players. It's just a minor change, so they can look at it long term, and they could do exactly what the Flyers did: decide, hey, Craig Berube wasn't the right guy. He was the right move at the time, gave him the right jump start, and then maybe that's down a year down the line they figure that out. But they have to do something. They can't continue like this. There's no way, because they have too much talent. And again, I just think Boudreau does these little things that really upsets a club. I do. Not upsets them mentally, just upsets the way a club operates.
Mm. Yeah, and to your point, Peter, about Denny Savard and Quenneville, I mean, they brought Quenneville in as some sort of special assistant or pro scout or something like that. He was basically there as a disaster, break glass if needed scenario. Which, I mean, it looks to me like
was a disaster. He was
right, and it looks to me like that maybe Bob Murray did the same thing with Paul McLean, because I mean, if Boudreau did go bad, you have a former coach of the year on the coaching staff that you can just put in there. But I just don't know, because I mean, things with McLean went bad pretty quickly with Ottawa. He won coach of the year, and then the next year he really, things fell apart. So I don't know whether that's the answer, or maybe Trent Yawney or Dallas Aikens or Randy Carlisle. I mean, we don't know. I mean,
I think it's going to be McLean, and I think when there were some firings of assistants last June with Anaheim, everybody knew Boudreau was safe. So that was the vote of confidence that sometimes kills a coach. And so when a team does that, it sort of tells me that you're on your last legs. Like, this is it. I'm firing your guys. You still have your job. You better do something, and he's not doing it. Whether it's his fault or not, it's not happening. It's a results business, and he's not getting them.
I think one thing that has come out of this week regarding coaches being fired and the compensation situation with Tortorella, I mean, I saw Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet report that they're going to address the compensation issue at the next Board of Governors meeting to the point that if they decide to change the rule, that it would go into effect on January 1st, where a coach who was fired, a team wouldn't have to provide compensation to the team that had fired him. I just think, though, I mean, it's sort of like, if I was Columbus, I would be screaming bloody murder. Is that okay? This is a bad rule, and you're going to change it in the middle of the season. But I had to give up a second-round pick to hire the guy.
But again, picks are assets, and so is money. So the money that you're spending on that second-round pick is millions of dollars. They would rather save the millions of dollars. Trust me.
Okay. Number of injuries this weekend.
Hang on. One thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't get the article, and I don't watch enough Ducks games, but already I see an article that Boudreau is fooling around with the lines too much, and that's part of what I talk about with him, where he overthinks it.
Mm. Yeah, and he's had a habit over the years of
with goalies, right?
Goalies, Neuwirth and Holtby in Washington, and now he's got he plays Khudobin 2 games in a row, and Frederik Andersen carried him to Game 7 of the Western Conference Final. I'm surprised they haven't called up John Gibson yet.
Yeah.
Okay, number of injuries this weekend and late last week that we found out the severity of them, and I want to see what you guys think regarding whether these teams are going to have to make some moves. It's very early in the season, and teams are loath to make trades to replace players. But first, St. Louis, they lose Paul Stastny last week for 5 weeks with a broken foot, I believe.
Yeah.
Now they lose Jaden Schwartz, who's on their top line with Laterra and Tarasenko. They lose him for 3 months with a fractured ankle. Russ, you first. I think they have enough depth in the organization, guys like Ratty, guys like Robbie Fabry, that they're not going to have to go out there and make trades to bring in somebody to make up for Schwartz or make up for Stastny. But those are significant losses in a very
How about you tell Hitch to cool it on the defense and bring up Ivan Barbashev? How about that?
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And that would open the most eyes. Put him with Tarasenko and see what you got there, because I think you'd have something pretty special. I don't know, and I didn't get a chance to look at it. Maybe Peter will know. With Schwartz, I sat next to him at the World Juniors when he was on crutches. Was that also an ankle injury there, Peter, that time that he couldn't play in the finals for Team Canada?
I don't know.
I'm going to try and look it up.
Good question. We should find that out. I don't know that.
Okay.
But I mean, we're talking about, a top 6 center. Stastny probably would have been number 1 or number 2 for that team, and now a top line left winger. Those are 2 significant offensive weapons for the Blues. Now, the Blues play a very shutdown defensive system, which is the reason why Barbashev won't be called up. Russ, he's gonna go to Scott Gomez. he's gonna rely on Scotty Upshaw. He's gonna go with these. He's gonna give more ice time to Steve Ott.
Good
and
luck.
He's not gonna open himself up to the mistakes of young players.
No, and in Hitchcock's systems are so precise in where he wants players to be. It's hard to just drop a guy in without them really understanding it. He's got such a detailed approach to how he wants his players to play and where he wants them to be that you got to have a guy who's already knows it and has experienced it yet to drop into situations like this. I mean, that's just the hit play.
It was an ankle injury back in the World Juniors,
Really?
and now I'm trying to figure out, do we know if it's a right or a left ankle? Have we seen a report on that, Mike?
I think it was a left, but I'm only guessing. I have a 50% chance of being right.
Yeah.
But no, I did find an article from the Toronto Star that said it was an ankle injury that knocked him out. So it might be that many weeks because it could be the same ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed an awfully long time. I mean,
and that's what my fear was. I meant to do it over the weekend and I was busy, but I remember sitting next to him and watching him hobbled around, and I was pretty sure it was an ankle. And so I'm thinking if he got the same spot, same ankle that was injured before, that would explain the long amount of time.
Yeah, they said at least 12 weeks. And I'm like, okay, you're talking about after the All-Star break.
Yep.
So, you're talking about 35 to 40 games with 3 months. So that's a significant loss.
Yeah, so this, it's something anyhow.
Yeah.
Who knows if it's the same ankle? I don't know. And I don't know I don't even remember if it was operated on the last time. I don't know.
Yeah. Someone you're very familiar with, Peter, Evander Kane suffered a knee injury against the Montreal Canadiens on Friday, or was it against New Jersey on Saturday?
It was on Saturday.
It was on Saturday. Okay, it was on Saturday. And it just popped up on Twitter just before the webcast that it was an MCL injury and he is out 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I know he's been injury plagued throughout his career. I mean, is it just the type of game that he plays, or is he just like like that Samuel L. Jackson character from the one movie Unbreakable, where everything he touches he just breaks?
No, that's Zach Bogosian.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's some theories on him too. Why? Not bad things, just that he overtrained when he was a youngster. Kane will be back, and he'll do what he does. I think the thing with Kane is that he's sort of got 2 gears, fast and then all out towards the net. And you never see Kane make significant lateral moves on a thing. And eventually, when you're going up and down the ice as hard and fast as he does, and you want to be this guy who bangs in front and everything, you set yourself up that way because he's a quintessential north-south guy who can go like the wind, but he sets himself up for accidents because he's got to crash the net or he's got to bail out and something goes wrong. I didn't actually see, once again, I didn't see this. I read about it. I didn't see it, so I can't sort of say exactly what he was doing when it happened. But that's just Kane. That's just the kind of game he plays, and high risk, high reward. Lately, there hasn't been a lot of reward.
It's funny because I used to look at Ovechkin that way and kind of wondered, would his recklessness hurt him and get him, get him robbed of a lot of time in his career, and it hasn't because he's learned how to control it. Kane has not learned how to control it.
Yeah,
He can be reckless out there.
And a perfect illustration of that was the game on Wednesday that I was at, where a lot of people had complained. It was 5 games into his first season with the Sabres and really hadn't made a mark. Russ mentioned the fact that he was still 50 goals away from scoring 50.
I did. Now I feel bad. Sorry, Evander. I hope you get well soon.
There you go. And then on Wednesday, in a 1-0 game, he feeds Dion Phaneuf a Coho sandwich. I mean, he nails him and then hits him with the stick, which of course the fans in Buffalo loved. and then moments later scores the tying goal. But he didn't have to go over Dion Phaneuf. He could have gone around him, but he decided, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this.
This is the moment that I'm gonna take.
Yeah, he went over Phaneuf like a snowplow, which is apt for Buffalo. So, but yeah, I mean, he plays that rough and tumble game, and unfortunately, it seems like he gets caught in situations that robs him of time. And the Sabres are not going to be a playoff team. We can see that by the fact that they're not trading for a goaltender. They're going to go with Chad Johnson and Linus Ullmark.
But how many more years are left on that Kane deal?
3.
2 after this one.
Yeah, 2 more after this one.
I'm just telling you. I know everybody looked at this like, oh my God, he's the perfect fit for Buffalo, and I was skeptical. Yeah. I'm still going to hold out and see what happens with it, but I have a feeling by the time Buffalo is right, he's not even going to be there.
Well, there are high-rise condos in Buffalo, and he can flash the money here.
Yeah.
The other injury that was significant.
Hang on, Peter was going to say something.
If who's the GM in Buffalo again? It's escaping me.
Tim Murray.
Tim Murray.
Yeah. Okay. If I'm him, I tell Kane, you know who you need to go see this offseason? You need to go hang out in Kelowna with Jerome Iginla. And you need to make him your best friend. Because Iginla is the guy Kane wants to be. He doesn't know how to get there.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a roadmap. Yes, he's independent. Yes, he's a free spirit in his social life. That's
he rides helicopters, he goes to playoff games. I get it.
Yeah. He needs Iginla he needs to talk to someone like Iginla who has been this guy who had wicked success early on but found a way to sustain it and adapt his game. And that's not what Kane's doing. And that's the maturity side. You get him with someone who can talk to him but has the street cred, so to speak, in terms of has already done it and is still doing it. That's the kind of thing. Get away from LA, Evander. Get up to Kelowna. Half the NHL's there anyways in the off season, or at least the Canadian guys, and work with them. Like, his fitness isn't a problem. His athleticism isn't a problem. It's about evolving his game that's the problem. And the book's out on him.
And ironically, now we're 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks into the regular season, and the 2 main components that came in that deal with Winnipeg, Bogosian has not played a game, and Kane is injured. While Tyler Myers and Drew Stafford, Stafford I think just had a really good game on the weekend, and Myers is playing fairly well. So it's right now Winnipeg is reaping the rewards of that deal, and Buffalo is not.
Okay, before the other injury, there's something brewing with Ryan Strome in New York. Did you see he got scratched for Saturday?
Yeah, I saw that, and I was curious about it, but I wasn't sure where that was going. I have a feeling we'll be talking about that tomorrow because we'll find out what's going on. But
he's come out in public and said he's pissed off about it too, and so
that's not good.
No, it's not good. To me, it's one of those situations too where I think we see what he has skill-wise. And Dan always likes to kind of go crazy about that and say, yeah, I think it's going to be a breakout year. And everybody's sort of waiting for that. And he's still sort of lacking, I think, that NHL strength, to be honest, to be able to really be at the height of his skills. So he might be a couple of years away still from really being that guy. And it seems like the Islanders are not willing to wait any longer.
Well, the one thing that and I could be completely off base here, but the one thing that I've been curious about regarding Strome and the Islanders is that they seem to be dead set on not having him play up the middle. He's been playing the wing.
Yeah.
And, I saw him.
It's the strength factor.
Yeah, I know, but honestly, Connor McDavid isn't the most strongest player in the world. I think there's something to be said for skill, and I think Ryan
skill. But McDavid already has a better frame than Strome has yet to have.
Yeah, I think Ryan Strome. Like I said, I could be wrong here. I think Ryan Strome believes he is a center, and right now he's being used as a sort of a complementary winger. Sometimes playing with Tavares. I mean, depending on what they're doing with their lineup, they move him off or on that line. But I think he is a center. And
he's a really good player. Look, he's got 73 points in 125 games. I see the high eye-hand coordination. I see the skill. I think the message they're sending is, we need you to put this together now. Like, somebody's got to be that Robin to, John Tavares, who's Batman, and we're looking at you, kid. You're 22. We understand you've been developing, and you're coming along. We need you to come along now.
Wait, I thought the Dark Knight was Matt Harvey. The other injury significant, we don't know how long this will be, but the Florida Panthers lose Alexander Barkov over the weekend with a broken hand. Now, he, I believe, had 6 points so far this season, and Florida's started off pretty well. They're over 500, but Barkov was on that line with Jágr and Huberdeau. That, Russ, I mean,
that's going to affect him.
Yeah, that's going to affect him
and it's going to affect Jágr too. He was reigniting Jágr. I mean, we all want to give Jágr all this credit, and that line was working well, and Barkov was a big reason that line was working well. I mean, Barkov does so many little things well besides the great skating and the eye hand and everything, and so that's a huge loss for them. I mean, that's something where now we might see a drop in the standings from them.
Right. I mean, Peter, now it's basically Bukestad moving up to the number 1 center spot, and
that's rough for him at this point. I don't think he's there yet.
Right, no, and somebody like Dave Boland having to step up into the number 2 role or something something like that
until he gets hurt.
Yeah, until he gets hurt. I mean, that's something that can really affect the positive track for Florida. They're probably gonna have to rely a lot more on Luongo to steal games until Barkov gets back.
Yeah, and you know what? There's nothing worse when you're a team built around developing your youngsters, and then you start losing them to injury. It sets off the chemistry because they've matured together. You've got a guy like Jágr who's everyone's mentor, and it's going to affect him, and he benefits from it too. I mean, he's playing like he's 18. Well, you start losing these young guys, it's going to affect him and what he can do. It's just more focus on those guys, and that's the challenge. Barkov was such an interesting talent, and he still is, and it's just how does that balance out now with him gone? It's not going to be easy, but I haven't looked at Florida's schedule lately, but they've had a whale of a schedule in terms of who they played, and I think if it settles down and such, maybe they can get that way. But you know what? Nothing really ever settles down the NHL schedule anymore.
No, I'll give you one thing that does give Florida some hope. And that is, early in the season, before an injury, Rocco Grimaldi looked like he was going to make the team. And he's back from injury, and he's been playing in the A, and so it looks like he's going to get a call-up. And I'm not saying he should be put on the top line, not at all, because he's not the biggest guy, but he's a guy that skates well, plays hard, plays two-way, knows where to go. And so, you know what? I think the addition of him could at least be a good patch, and that might be a great way for Grimaldi to sort of see what he can do at this point.
This morning it was announced that Nashville defenseman Matthias Ekholm was extended 6 years for $22.5 million. That's $3.75 million per season. Again, this is in the long line of all of these players coming off either their entry-level deal or after the first bridge deal and signing a long-term extension. Russ, I mean, I wrote an article about this during the summer about the Leafs and Morgan Rielly, and I think with Winnipeg and Jacob Trouba, it's another situation where these teams are having to make decisions on these defensemen at age 20 or 21. Oscar Klefbom is another example. I mean, this may be a good value, and we know Ekholm has got a lot of potential, and we mentioned last week that Laviolette really likes Ekholm, thinks he's a really good defenseman. But a 6-year deal for a guy who really hasn't proved a ton yet, it's just a little.
It's a little much. Here, it's an interesting thing that's going on now because, if anybody listens to my prospect show, we'll talk about defensemen taking anywhere from immediate to Aaron Ekblad to actually 25 to really play at their potential, right? And so now you're actually signing guys. They're 2-3 years into deals before they actually turn 25. And you're now guessing that they're going to do that. Because even if they're playing well at 21, it doesn't mean they're going to play well at 22 and 3. We see hiccups. We saw hiccups with Tyler Myers until he got straightened out. And so it's a really risky proposition. It is. there are going to be people that analyze it that say, oh, it's low risk, it's not that much money. But the problem is that that position is so difficult. Consistency is what's really hard to come by there.
Peter, the thing that I look at when I look at their salary structure, I mean, they have Ryan Ellis locked up for 3 more years. Roman Yossi signed a similar type of deal a couple years ago, and he's dramatically underpaid at $4 million. They still have to sign Seth Jones to an extension. I don't think Seth Jones is going to be taking a bridge deal. They're probably going to want to get him locked up for 6 or 7 years. At this point, I'm starting to wonder whether they're setting the table for the eventual move of Shea Weber, because they're paying all these defensemen so much for so long that they're not going to be able to afford Weber at almost $8 million a year.
Oh, I know. You know what? I think it's perfect, because when they trade him to Edmonton for Jordan Eberle, they're going to be set. It's but honestly, okay, take away the joke out of there. Isn't that what we've asked GMs to start doing, is being a little more ruthless about these kinds of things and cutting bait earlier, being hardcore? I mean, the rumors out there is that Mike Holmgren calls Poyle every other week to ask him when he's ready to trade Weber. So maybe he's going to Philly. Maybe he will. Remember, Weber wanted the no trade clause.
Wait, you said Mike Holmgren instead of Paul Holmgren.
I do that all the time, and I'm a diehard Seahawks fan.
Mike's retired somewhere. Give him a break.
Yeah, he lives in the Seattle area, I think.
Okay.
Well, Paul Holmgren does that, right? Like, I mean, if I'm David Poyle, or if I'm a Nashville fan, and I see David Poyle do this, I'm thinking, I trust this guy locking up players more than I do other guys. And, you know, look at what the Oilers did with Klefbom, right? Same kind of idea. I think that's a bigger gamble than what Oil just did.
But if we start looking at them all, the Savard, we didn't like it. So far, it's not working out. The Klefbom, so far, not great. We'll see over the long term. I think for every good one of these that we like or find, there are going to be 3 or 4 really bad ones.
I think, see, the funny thing is, Russ, is I think that the good ones influence teams to roll the dice more often. I mean, when a team goes out there and they see, wow, Nashville signed Roman Yossi, and now they've got him for 4 more years at $4 million, and he's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman. We can do that if we offer, if the Leafs say, okay, we're going to offer Morgan Riley 7 years at $5 million. But who knows whether Morgan Riley is going to be, I mean, I think he's going to be a good defenseman. Who knows whether he's going to be a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman? I mean, you hope he was a top 5 pick, something of that nature. Who knows whether Jacob Trouba is going to be, that number 1 linchpin franchise defenseman? You don't know. They're 20. They're 21 years old. It's early in their development. A lot of things can happen, and I think it's purely a roll of the dice, and I think it's a risk sometimes that's not worth taking with these teams.
Here now, no one's going to say that he was going to turn into PK Subban, but that's in the back of every GM's mind right now. Good Lord, what if I do a bridge deal and he pulls a Subban, and now I'm in for $9 million?
Yeah, I mean, the contract that was on the table for PK Subban was that his agent offered was 5 years, $25 million.
Yeah.
And they ended up signing him for 2 years at under $3 million. So for the last 3 years of that, if they would have taken the 5-year deal, Montreal, they would have been paying PK Subban $5 million or $4 million less per year than they're paying him now. So there's the lesson.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we're probably overlooking. Nashville scored 25 goals. They're not that bad off for goals right now, and as a result, that's why they're leading their division. None of us really saw that coming, so we'll have to cut them some slack right now, because maybe this is their year.
If he projects into a 3-4 defenseman, and that's what he is, a 3.75, I'm running with that. And if you can, and depending on what you have around him, you can, if you have to shelter in a few years because of situations or because of his play doesn't quite go, you can manage that at 3.75 for a younger guy. You hope it doesn't come to that, but you can manage it. You can't manage it when you're in the 4.5, 5. That's when it becomes a real pain. So is it a bad bet? No. Is it a great bet? No. But it's a decent bet.
Well, the
And I
question.
think that's the Nashville way of doing things. Make the decent bet. Don't try and hit the home run. Don't try and carry the water and get it on the green. Lay up, be smart.
Well, the question is, Peter, is whether, I mean, with other teams besides Nashville, I mean, Nashville seems to have the market cornered on this tactic, on extending these players for longer term, giving them more money than they would get on the bridge deals, but getting term out of it. How does this affect a team like Winnipeg? I mean, you've got Bufflin, who's a pending UFA. You've got Trouba with the expiration of his entry-level deal. I mean, they could very easily try to go the direction of a bridge deal, but they're not going to get the benefit of if they go 6 or 7 years on Trouba and try to get him for $4.5 to $5 million, then they may benefit from the fact that they have a young defenseman locked up on a set amount rather than rolling the dice. And if he comes of age, he's going to get more than $5 million in a couple of years. I mean, how does that affect teams like Winnipeg? And I mean, teams like Toronto, they'll pay Morgan Riley if what they want because they print money, but how does that affect a team like Winnipeg?
That's kind of a mystery from the salary cap versus internal budget with Winnipeg. No one really quite knows what it is. But I mean, before you get into projecting what he might be, if Trouba and Bufflin both keep playing like they did yesterday, no one's going to be worried about that contract because no one's going to pay him. They were both horrendous yesterday. And I don't know if you saw the penalty Bufflin took with 2 minutes left in a game, in a 1-goal game. Unbelievable. I mean, that was pure stupidity. Anyways, with Trouba, I think they'll want to lock him up, but there's going to be a little bit of cautiousness with Kevin Cheveldayoff because they didn't give Kane a bridge deal. They gave him 6 years right out, but he had a 30-goal season. They gave Bogosian a bridge deal, and then he came in, and then they signed him for 7 years. And they were able to get rid of both of them, ironically, together to the same place. But is it going to make him a little gun-shy about his approach? Because he's taken 2 different tactics with key players that he thought were going to be franchise cornerstones, and now they're both not there. And they both potentially maybe have not the greatest contract out there.
I think having Kevin on our show a few times now and talking prospects with him and talking about guys like Morrissey and having them be pretty deep as they are, I don't think they're going to be giving out big contracts in areas that they have players that could come and fuel the roster in a year or two. And so I think that's going to be their plan, and I think it's the right plan because, as an example, Bogosian. I was never that high on Zach Bogosian. I really wasn't. I saw little flashes, but I never saw enough. But at that point in time, they were sort of desperate because they didn't have anybody. They're no longer desperate.
Yeah, well, they are on the left side. Other than Mr. Morrissey, there's nothing in the pipe for left-handed D. It's a mess. Except there is this nice kid, Spacek, in Red Deer, who is lighting it up right now. And he was a 4th-round pick, too. And he came over to play from Czechoslovakia, and he came over to play in the WHL, and he has started off the season guns blazing. So he's a glimmer of hope there, and he's a left-handed defenseman. Russ, I have some concerns about the Jets D going forward. When you've got 2 guys 30 and over and Enstrom and Buff, plus Stewart, so what that leaves you with Myers and Trouba.
But I don't think Bufflin will be there. I never thought he's going to be there.
I don't think he's going to be there either. And I don't think he should be there. I don't think it makes sense. But here's
the thing about it. While the fans are focused on them like making a run in the playoffs, that's not the complete focus of the Jets. They're still building.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And what they're going to be looking for, and this is going to be the toughest thing for Kevin Cheveldayoff, they're going to be looking for a hockey trade. They're not going to be looking for, we're going to trade Bufflin for a first-round pick and prospects. They have that covered. They're one of the deepest organizations in terms of prospects. They want players they can hold on to who can help them make the playoffs. And I don't know whether there's going to be teams out there. I mean, Philadelphia makes a lot of sense because they have a lot of talent. They have prospects, and they have some NHL talent that's relatively young. There's 2 and 2 and 2 equals 4 there. But there are not many teams that are going to be willing to make that kind of deal, because Buffalo probably is bound and determined to test free agency next July, and unless he goes to some place that will pay him what he would get as a free agent, I don't know whether the will is there to make that kind of deal.
At 23, Brendan Kitchton he's got 4 points in 6 games. He does have some talent. He is a left-handed shot.
That's true.
Never know.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? And he was one of the last guys to get cut down at the end of training camp, too. And you know what? And if they need a left-handed D call-up, they'll be the first guy. Yep. I mean, just in terms of the Jets and D, the rumors out there right now are that Paul Postma is basically available.
Right.
You have to find an answer. There's talk that maybe the Blackhawks are interested, and that the Jets were scouting in Philly twice.
They were. I witnessed it.
Yeah, they were, but apparently they were scouting the Blackhawks.
Okay.
And Chevy was there with 2 scouts, and then there was another scout there last week again.
Yep.
I don't know, but from someone I sort of heard some stuff from, Postma's got a 2-year deal. It's about $750K. He never gets ice time. Well, people would rather see him. There's no sense for this guy to be here, and
right.
I think he's leaving. And I think he can make a decent 5-6 defenseman on a lot of teams. The guy can move the puck, and he's not unintelligent in his own end either.
Listen, go look at Columbus. Columbus you might get some interest there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are 3 or 4 teams out there right now that are looking for defensemen. In spite of what Columbus said publicly before they fired Richards, I don't think they're looking for a top 2 defenseman, because you can't get a top 2 defenseman right now. I don't think. Yeah, that's impossible. What you can get
Buffalo will be the only guy who sort of fits that bill on some nights that you could probably get.
Right, but the defensemen who are out there right now that teams will trade would be Luke Schenn in Philadelphia, a guy like Roman Polak in Toronto, because Toronto has a couple young defensemen behind them that I think they want to play. Players like that, pending UFAs who teams don't have who don't have playoff aspirations or realistic playoff aspirations wouldn't mind getting up. But anyway, we'll discuss more about what's going on in the NHL tomorrow. X should be back. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you coming on short notice.
My pleasure. Always great to be here, guys. Appreciate it.
And for Russ Cohen, this is Michael Agello of HockeyBuzz.com. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.